What is up, though, Lions fans? It is your boy Chef. We are back, and you already know what time it is. We have had a delay due to some stuff going on with this Streamlabs, but I couldn't wait any longer. I know we got some in the chat still stuck in the other stream, but hopefully they will get the message and they will come on over here. So once again, time before the YAK pod, episode number 94. Now there were some settings that I had messed with yesterday, just trying to get some of this other stuff working, this collab cam, trying to get ready to move over to the other platform, and that may have caused some issues. I'm not sure, but there was an issue with the scheduler. Usually I just go live from the scheduler and then the YouTube will populate it and it will get started. But today that was not the case. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started talking about what we were going to talk about. Now, I have seen some things floating around. I have looked at some of the welcome, Justifan, you found me, yes. If you could let everybody else know where to find me, maybe paste the link in the other chat. But we got to get rolling. So anyway, what I was saying is that I have seen some things going around, and I've kind of made some observations about this football team. I've made some observations about this coaching staff. I've made some observations about these players. The observations started, I believe, yesterday when Dan Campbell was talking about Levi Onwuzurike, and he was talking about how he was able to overcome. For the most part, we think he was able to overcome that back injury, and he's now able to do some different things, put more weight on. He's able to move around better. He's able to actually start making an impact, and he's having a great spring. We look at Khalil Dorsey. Khalil Dorsey was having a great spring until he was carted off the field yesterday, and we still don't have word that I've heard about his injury. But generally, when you get carted off the field, it's not great. Obviously, there have been situations like the DK Metcalf situation when he got carted off the field and he said he just needed to go to the bathroom or something crazy like that. And we had the Paul Pierce situation where he was in the wheelchair and apparently he just had to go and do a number 2. So I don't think that was what was going on with Khalil Dorsey. I would hope that it's nothing serious, but you never know. With lower leg injuries, carting off the field, it's not generally something that's good, but it could be different this time. So the observation that I was making was that this team and their developmental abilities are off the charts. Now, why do I say that? Look at Khalil Dorsey. Who was Khalil Dorsey last season? What is going on, Paul Thomas? You made it. You found the stream. So who was Khalil Dorsey last season? I definitely don't believe that he was this guy. All right. I can't be your favorite Australian if I'm not Australian. So anyway, that wasn't Khalil Dorsey from last year. That was Khalil Dorsey from this year. Remember last year, what happened with Khalil Dorsey is he was given an opportunity to go and be that, I guess you would say, fourth corner, because by the time Vildor got inserted, so we were down. Cam Sutton was our starter. We were down Jerry Jacobs. Did we have someone else playing outside of Jerry Jacobs? Oh, sorry. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. Cam Sutton was our number one, but I really believe that Emmanuel Mosley was supposed to be our number one. Cam Sutton was not supposed to be a number one, which is why he struggled, especially down the back half of the season after he sustained the turf toe injury. But in the front half of the season, again, I'm going to keep saying that Cam Sutton didn't do poorly. We didn't hear his name called a whole lot, which is good. He wasn't getting the turnovers. He wasn't creating interceptions and things of that nature, but his coverage was decent. He definitely wasn't giving up 200 yards to the likes of Justin Jefferson, who obviously he was injured in the first part of the season. But the 200-yard games that we were giving up to the likes of Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb and people like this came in the back half of the season. So Mike Evans in the first game against Cam Sutton didn't particularly do a whole lot. Right? And the second game, which was the playoffs, Mike Evans ate a bit. Right? And again, so we chalked that up to the turf toe injury, but Cam Sutton wasn't supposed to be the number one. I believe Emmanuel Mosley was supposed to be the number one. He was, I think he was the number one corner in San Francisco when he was there, and that was a top 5 defense before he got injured. So Emmanuel Mosley was down. Jerry Jacobs was down. And then you had a brief competition between Khalil Dorsey and Kendall Vildor. Now, CJ GJ wasn't a corner, so I'm not counting him in this situation. I mean, he can play the nickel, but he wasn't an outside corner. So I'm just talking about the outside corners. So Khalil Dorsey got the opportunity. He didn't do well. And then that started the era of Kendall Vildor, right? The error of Matt Patricia, the error of Quinn Trisha, but the era of Kendall Vildor. And I know that some people believe that it was the error of Kendall Vildor, but again, I am not a Kendall Vildor hater. I was on the Rise and Grind morning show this morning, which I will probably be on there again tomorrow morning. But we were talking about Kendall Vildor, and I, again, am not killing Kendall Vildor. I said that Kendall Vildor did actually help us to get to where we went. We went to the NFC Championship game. He helped us get there. He was on that defense that played well enough to get us to the NFC Championship game. So I'm not going to kill him because the ball bounced off of his face mask. It would have been a penalty anyway. But back to Khalil Dorsey. So Khalil Dorsey, like I said, he had the opportunity. He couldn't grasp the opportunity. He's doing better this spring. Well, he was doing better, obviously, before the injury. We don't know the extent of the injury. But what does that speak to? How does this guy who wasn't on the field, except in a special teams role, how does he all of a sudden get an opportunity, a real opportunity to make plays and to work himself into the cornerback depth? And we're talking about actually cornerback depth, not just a special teamer who you hope. I mean, obviously, we've got 4 corners in Carlton Davis III, Terrion Arnold, Ennis Rakestraw, and Amik Robertson. We've got those 4 guys that we want to see on the field all the time, some sort of rotation of those guys, some sort of sub packages with those guys in it. We hope that the cornerback carousel does not have to go past these 4 guys. But what you also hope is that if the quarterback the cornerback carousel does go past these four guys, that you have quality depth. Okay? So now Khalil Dorsey has been able to work himself into the quality depth conversation. And according to, I think it was it CBS? I think according to CBS, quality depth is pretty darn good because apparently Monty and Jameer are quality depth. That's what they are. They're the backfield of Montgomery and Gibbs, right? The law firm of Montgomery and Gibbs. I like that. I am using that one. Because we have the electrician who is Jameer Gibbs. Now we have the law firm of Montgomery and Gibbs. Okay. All they do is win. All right. So you've got the law firm of Montgomery and Gibbs, according to CBS. They are in the tier of quality depth. They are not a top tier backfield. They're in the tier of quality depth. So quality depth, in my opinion, after looking at what CBS says about quality depth, must be pretty darn good. It must be pretty darn good. I wish I could be quality depth in the NFL. Quality depth has a Hall of Fame potential, apparently, according to CBS. But that's neither here nor there. So you want to have guys that are in the quality depth conversation, and Khalil Dorsey has now catapulted himself into that when last year he was simply a special teamer. How does that happen? I'm going to just go out on a limb and say I believe that the Detroit Lions have some of the best developmental coaches in the NFL. There are a litany of examples. Onwuzurike is kind of in that conversation, but not totally and completely, because I believe that Onwuzurike, clearly he was just hampered by that back injury. He was highly sought after. He was drafted before Aleem McNeil. The Eagles apparently were angry that Brad Holmes grabbed Levi Onwuzurike. So obviously we expected a lot from Levi, but there was that back injury. But he has also worked with the coaches. He's worked with the training staff. He's worked with the medical staff. And they've been able to get him back to a situation where most people aren't getting back to. When you start having back injuries, it's tough sledded. But, obviously his youth and things of that nature have helped him. But he is, again, kind of in that conversation, not as much as a Khalil Dorsey, but he is kind of there. Who else is in that conversation? Broderick Martin. Broderick Martin has done nothing. Okay, I'm not gonna say that Broderick Martin has arrived. He's done something yet, but what he has done is he has shown the. David Barton says, "Guess what? The Lions are great." So Broderick Martin has shown the willingness to put in the work. Now, if you remember when he got drafted, that was the thing that he said. He said he was about the work, about putting in the work, about being driven, and all these other things. Okay, now that may have seemed like only lip service when he was drafted, and then the way that his season turned out, where he did not contribute. However, if you've seen a man that size come back in looking jacked, looking, dare I say, svelte, right? He has transformed his body. He has shown he is in the lab and he is getting ready to play. And he's also excited about playing under Terrell Williams, who is, according to Dan Campbell, the best defensive line coach in the NFL. Now, it's not just with Broderick Martin. It's not just coaches. Apparently, when he met DJ Reader. He had never met DJ Reader before, and DJ Reader had already gone over his tape, and he had notes of how he could help Broderick Martin. He said he was excited to help him, excited to develop him. So, why does DJ Reader believe that? Because obviously he sees in him what Brad Holmes saw in him when he drafted him. And he believes that if he can help to shape and mold this guy, Broderick Martin will be a monster. Broderick Martin is an example of the developmental prowess of this team. Again, I'll caution you. I'm not saying that Broderick Martin has hit the field. I'm not saying that Broderick Martin has contributed to this defense or has done anything in the NFL. All I can say is that he's shown the willingness, and he's shown the ability to be malleable, to be coachable, to be shapeable, to be moldable, and he's also not just demonstrated the ability to be those things. He's demonstrating the desire to be those things. He wants to be coached. He wants to be shaped. He wants to be molded. He wants to be turned into a dominant force in the middle of that defensive line. So now that brings me to a few other people. We've got Manu. Manu has been struggling in training camp. And Dan Campbell said when he was asked a question about Manu, this was expected. He's swimming. He's out in the deep waters. He's flailing. He's doing all these things. And he's expected to get worse before he gets better. But they are breaking him down from the beginning. Technique, everything. And is there a better coaching staff than this one to do such things? I'm not sure that there is. So Manu is a behemoth, right? And he's a huge man that runs super duper fast for a person that is as big as him, right? So this is another developmental project. He played at a small school, according to, compared to what you would play at in the United States. Broderick Martin played at a small school. What was it? Western Kentucky? They're not a football powerhouse, right? So then you just have confidence in someone like Manu because of this coaching staff. Now, Kindle Vildor. Kindle Vildor. Dare I say that Kindle Vildor will be the first cornerback off of the bench. And I'm talking about outside of the top 4 guys. Kindle Vildor, remember where he came from. He came from the Bears, I think, practice squad. He came in the middle of the year. And like I said, he was thrust pretty promptly, think about a week or two after he got here, into the starting lineup. If you're on the practice squad, you're there to do what? Can anybody let me know? Anybody in the chat, let me know. What are you there to do when you're on the practice squad? Just a fan says you're there to be meat. That is incorrect. That is incorrect. Rocked On Podcast Network and Sports Media Group says develop the first team. You are there to develop the first team, but also, dare I say, you are there to develop as well, right? You are practicing against the first team. You are giving them looks, and you get coaching. Now, Kendall Vildor is a guy that has some experience on the active roster. So now he's going to go into the tank, into the lab with the mad scientists that are the Detroit Lions coaching staff, and he will be developed. So for Kendall Vildor to be the first cornerback off of the bench outside of the top 4 guys is not crazy. It's not crazy. And then Kendall Vildor has also, he has a maturity about him, right? When they asked him about who or that fateful play when the ball bounced off his face mask, he said it was unlucky, it was unfortunate, but he's ready to move past it. So now there's that hunger that Kendall Vildor has, because he knows that while he may not be a starter, he knows that people are going to look at him as the guy who had a ball bounce out off of his face mask in the NFC Championship game, which led to a miraculous catch by a receiver downing at the 5-yard line, that put pretty much the final nail in the coffin of their rally. If you don't score that touchdown, if you hold them to 3 there, maybe there was a chance, right? So he's known as that guy. And there are a lot of Lions fans that will not forgive him, just like there are a lot of Lions fans who will never forgive Josh Reynolds. But Josh Reynolds is out of town. He's not here anymore. So I don't believe that Kendall Vildor wants to allow you to continue to have that taste in your mouth. So when, I'm not going to say when, I hope that Kendall Vildor doesn't get on the field. I hope that Khalil Dorsey doesn't get on the field. I hope we don't have to go into that tank. But this is the NFL, and people are going to get injured. So he's going to show you that when he gets on that field, he is a different player than he was last season. He's a better player than he was last season. He has been developed more so than he was last season. And I believe that wholeheartedly. David Barton in the chat says that he can't wait to see how they use Vaki. Vaki is another guy. Excuse me. Vaki is another guy with tremendous potential, right? And at the hands of these mad scientists who love to develop people, right? I think he is going to be a stud eventually. Just look at all of Brad Holmes' draft picks. The only guy I believe that we were ready to give up on. I mean, you couldn't really get, some people were ready to give up on Broderick Martin. I mean, we drafted Broderick Martin as a project. I didn't really expect anything from Broderick Martin. If you look at his tape, you know, his technique was raw. He needed to work on things. You know, his leverage wasn't great because sometimes he was just standing straight up. You know, he's got to learn how to stay low. He's got to learn how to use his body because he is a massive man, right? He has to learn how to use his body properly in the ways to get off, to get underneath the, you know, the tackles and guards he's going to be going up against. He's got to learn those things. So I didn't really expect him to be on the field much at all last year anyway. The only one that you can say that did not work out would be Levi Onwuzurike, obviously because of the injury. Not because he doesn't have any talent, not because he's a bust, but because we didn't really think that he was going to play because of the back injury. And now it's looking like that's not actually true. right? It's looking like now he is going to be in the rotation. He is going to be there because he is now available, and the back injury hopefully has healed up, if not 100%, probably somewhere in the 90s. It's absolutely amazing. The team, the staff, the organization has changed in a way that it has in such a short time. I mean, this, we have to realize we're coming up on season 4. We're coming up on season 4 of the Brad Campbell regime. Okay? Season 4. Super Bowl expectations. Season number 1, 3-13-1. Season number 4, Super Bowl expectations. David Barton says we never had this ever before. You are correct. We never had this ever before. Even when we had Barry Sanders, we had a very good roster, but we had infighting between the coaches and the front office people. It just wasn't an environment where people wanted to come to work. And if you've got an environment where people don't want to come to work, that leads to chaos, and that leads to lack of job performance. It leads to lack of job performance. I'll give you an example. My son had his first job at McDonald's, and my son was 15 at the time, and apparently he had a bad manager, and one of the managers would, kind of insult him and, call him worthless and all these other things. So now you shouldn't do this, but he started skipping work. They would give him shifts. He just wouldn't show up. So, I mean, on an NFL football team, you can't physically not show up because you're going to get fined. But when it comes to game day, you may not show up mentally. So we don't have those issues, which is why I think, and I hope we're not proven wrong, I hope we're proven correctly, because of who's at the helm, because of Dan Campbell, because of him being who he is, because of him being a former NFL player, because of him experiencing 0-16. I don't think you guys realize how much experiencing 0-16 is in the fiber of his DNA. When he talks about lack of complacency, that 0-16 team, there were a few blowouts, but they fought hard, man. There were a lot of 3 and 7 point losses in that 0-16 season. It was unexpected for them to be going 0-16 with that roster. You didn't expect it. So now when Dan Campbell talks to you, he's authentic as it gets anyway. But when he talks to you about the highs and the lows, man, he's been to the lowest low. I mean, you can't get any worse than 0-16 unless you're a team now that goes 0-17, right? That's a team which will have the all-time futility mark. And it's really going to be hard to go 0-17. You have to have the perfect situation. And I use that to be funny, right? The perfect situation to go 0-16. It has to be the perfect storm. I think we had the perfect storm to go 0-16. Like we said, the management wasn't there. The coaching staff, Rod Marinelli, great guy, really nice guy. But I think he was in over his skis. I don't think he really quite grasped what it meant to be a head coach in the NFL. He was a great line coach, but he shouldn't have been at the helm. So now when Dan Campbell talks about these things, the players know, one, he played in the NFL. Two, he played in Detroit. Three, he went through an 0-16 season. The authenticity is there. He never BS's a player. Even in the media. He won't like and I know Will loves this word, he won't excoriate a player in the media, but he will let you know when a player is not playing up to his standard and he needs to do more. He needs to do better. So he will let you know these things. He will also let you know when a player is either playing over the standard or over the expectations, and he'll let you know when a player is doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. Another nugget from Dan Campbell. Yesterday, they asked him in a press conference about were there any players that surprised him, that were surprising him currently in mandatory minicamp. He said, I don't really know how to answer that question, because when you say a player surprises you, that means he does things that you don't expect him to do. He said all of our players, when they're out there doing these things, this is what we expect them to do. Like, this is expected of them. If you go above and beyond what other people think that you can do, Dan Campbell already had that belief in you. Your coach already had that belief in you to let you know, I believe you can do this. So now, while you may earn the playing time because you're performing better than you were performing last year, that doesn't mean that he didn't think that you could do it and it was unexpected. So this is who is leading us. I don't believe that with him at the helm, that this team will have well, it's not a Super Bowl hangover because we didn't make it to the Super Bowl, right? But I don't believe that they will be like the Bengals when they got to the Super Bowl and they didn't even did they get back to the playoffs? I don't think they got back to the playoffs because Burrow was hurt. So I don't think it'll be a team that falls flat and falls on its face the way a lot of teams have when they get to a really high point in the season. The NFC Championship game, the AFC Championship game, Super Bowl losers. And then the next season is just, I don't think that that's what we have in Detroit. In comparison, Andy Reid, fantastic coach, phenomenal. One of the greats, especially when it comes to offensive head coaches. Andy Reid may be the greatest offensive head coach of all time. And if he's not, I would say he's in the top 3. Can you guys tell me? Because a lot of you are older than me, right? Can you tell me an offensive coach who you would consistently put above Andy Reid? Just Fan says he's 35 in September. Time machine. David Barton says none. Right? So we can say that Andy Reid is the greatest offensive. Vince Lombardi, offense wasn't even really it was like 3 yards in a cloud of dust back then. So I since offense has evolved, I'm gonna say Andy Reid. Now, look at what's happening with his team, and they're supposed to be competing for a 3rd straight Super Bowl. You've got one guy who decides not to go to a racetrack, Not to go to like, because I know in many cities, they have racetracks, and especially if a person has money and he wants to rent out a racetrack and race with his friends, he can do that. So he decides, no, that is that's too much. That requires too much planning. That requires too much prior notice. That requires spending money that I don't want to spend. But after wrecking a Lamborghini, you're gonna have to spend. You'd have to spend more money than you would have had to spend if you would have just gone to a racetrack and tried to rent it out for an hour or whatever have you. So you've got a guy who's a prominent member of their offense who decides, let's go and race on the expressway. So now he's going on this public service tour trying to rehabilitate his image. And I don't know how there was no discussion of suspension or anything. I don't know how that works. But he gets into this accident and then he leaves the scene of the accident. So not only does he make a really dumb decision to do the racing, after he gets into the race and then gets into a wreck, which does affect other people on the expressway, he decides that he should leave. As if no one was going to recognize him, as if no one was going to take pictures or film videos. In this world of social media, where all of these younger people live, they live on social media, he didn't think that, hey, someone is going to get me and my friends leaving from this accident. Every single person who has a phone, unless you are, who is it? It's not Skip Bayless. Is it Shannon Sharp? Somebody still has a flip phone. I can't remember who it is. But someone who's, in the media, whatever, they still have a flip phone. So unless you're one of those people, you have a camera on your phone. Nah, it's not Stephen A. Smith. Definitely not Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. Smith definitely does not have a flip phone. By leaving, he avoided breathalyzer and drug tests. That is correct. But generally, leaving the scene of an accident is going to be worse for you. Unless he was like super duper drunk. So that happened. Then you have the guy who did not even play in the Super Bowl. He is just there holding trophies, kissing trophies, talking about how he had an opportunity now to win a Super Bowl because he was around some real dogs. That guy who came from the Detroit Lions, who was jettisoned from the Detroit Lions because I believe that there were some things that popped up in the offseason. And Dan and Brad were like, your character is a little bit, maybe you're not the guy that we thought you were. Maybe you're not the leader that we thought you were. You talk a good game on game day. You get in the huddle and you rah and rally the troops. But maybe you're not that guy. So we're gonna lots of healthy scratches, lots of coaches' decisions, did not play, and DNPs, all that stuff, right? And then they just jettison him off the team, and KC picks him up, and he goes to the practice squad, and the next thing you know, he's left 2 dogs unattended on a property somewhere in Alabama. One of them had to be put down. And now he's got misdemeanor warrants. He's still on the football team. The day after, Cam Sutton was found to have a warrant for his arrest, he was dismissed from the team. Okay? Who was this? David Barton says, B.J. Thompson, second-year player, DE, had seizure today, then cardiac arrest. Team canceled practice. Fan says he's a real gangster. Kansas City Chiefs. Okay. Well, that's not that's nothing on Andy Reid and the team, right? Yeah, that's terrible. Hopefully he's okay. Hopefully he's fine. And he gets the rest that he needs, and whatever the issue was, hopefully they figure it out. Remember, like I said before, Nick Fairley had a heart condition, and he didn't find that out until he got to New Orleans, because he had to do the physical, to get on a new team, and they found that out. So hopefully they find out what the issue was that caused that before he, so it doesn't do any further damage. The clot shot, what do you mean? Bugs and the dog, that's not a big deal though. Governor Kristi Noem shoved the .38 caliber into her dog. That has nothing to do with football though. I'm trying to paint a picture, man. I'm trying to get this narrative together. So yeah, I got you. So this happened. And then on the lighter side, you've got rookie Xavier Worthy. Now, all the people that were hating on J-Mo has displayed one thing that you would say, okay, this kid has bad judgment, or he's not, what would you call it? The maturity situation, right? Which was the gambling, which is what happened in his second season. Now, should he have known the rules? Yes, he should have. But many players have come out and said that while the NFL pretends in the public to really, really drive points home, there are certain things that are murky and unclear, which is why J-Mo was gambling in a team hotel, not on the NFL. So I don't really kill J-Mo for that, because he wasn't betting on the NFL. This is why he only really was suspended 2 games. This is why the NFL reduced his suspension. Now, after he had served a 4-game suspension, because I believe it was originally 6 games, yeah. So the NFL didn't even really think it was a big deal, but leave it to the NFL to stick it to the Lions and go, well, let's make this decision after he has served 4 games, 2 games suspension only. So I don't know. That didn't make a lot of sense. But that's the only thing that I could say that J-Mo has shown off of the field to be maybe a part of, bad character or whatever. So we have a rookie Xavier Worthy, who has taken some of his rookie signing bonus, converted it into ones, and he's on a TikTok with his stripper girlfriend, flashing cash and making it rain. Now, what does that say about Xavier Worthy? Not too much. It doesn't say too much. But it kind of shows you that there are priorities in places where there shouldn't be. Going on TikTok and flashing your cash as a rookie is not the most ridiculous thing a person can do. It has It's not anywhere near what Isaiah Buggs did. It's not anywhere near what Rashee Rice did. But it's just it's a bad look. It's bad optically with all the things that have been going on with the Kansas City Chiefs this offseason. You know what I mean? Um, and again, the greatest offensive coach of all times is heading that organization. And this is all happening on his watch. There was also the thing about, his son and all that, but his son is the person who he is. Anybody with kids knows that your kids aren't going to be just like you. You want them to be better than you, but that's just your kids are human beings of their own, right? So if your kid does something as an adult, that doesn't really negatively reflect on you. If your kid does something when they're a kid, when they're a little kid, then that's when I look at the parents. But as an adult, you don't know how he was parented. He may have been parented harshly, and he may have reacted some kind of way to that. He may have been parented with leniency, and he may have reacted in, being spoiled or whatever the case may be. So you never know how a human being who's your child will turn out as a result of, you can have two kids and parent both of them the same way, and they're going to take it differently. So, it is what it is. Parenting is a journey. There's a lot of stuff you got to learn. It's a lot of stuff you have to understand. So I don't lump anything that happened with Andy Reid's son into Andy Reid not being able to control the situation. We're talking about the team here. So that's it, man. I just feel like Dan Campbell he's the right guy, man. And the staff that he's put around him, the way that they develop these players, the way that they do all of these things to facilitate the growth of the players, to help them be themselves, to help them understand what their jobs are, to be great at their jobs, all the expectations that we have of the second-year players, expecting everyone to take a leap. No one is expected to take a step back. Just looking at, man, Jahmyr Gibbs was great, but he can be better. Sam Laporta was great, but he can be better. Jack Campbell was good. He could be a lot better. Just things of this nature. Brian Branch was good. He can be better. He was great. He can be better. So it's just a exciting time, man. What a time to be alive. What a time to be a Lions fan. But that's pretty much all I have for today. Let's look at some things that we have in the chat. Mile Marker says he's going to be someone to watch worthy. Yeah, I believe he will be. His speed is tantalizing. I think a lot of people are going to be looking for him to be that Tyreek Hill that they lost. And I think 100% that's why they drafted him. There was Keon Coleman, there was Xavier Worthy, there were other people on the board at the time. Not Xavier Worthy, Xavier Legette. My bad. Was Xavier Legette there when the Chiefs picked? Because I believe he went to the Panthers, right? Appreciate you, Justin Fan. Appreciate you as always. Justin Fan says J-Mo's sandwich choices. Yeah, his diet is not great. Mile Marcus says, but it may reflect the bigger issues of character on their team. Yeah, that's pretty much what I was alluding to. Paul Thomas says nobody wants to talk about it, but I'm just wondering if BJ Thompson had the COVID vaccine at Justin Fan. The true science is getting out now. Lots of clotting from the shot. Oh, that's what you meant by the clot shot. Okay. All right. Paul, are you saying I have a stripper girlfriend? I do. Let's see. David Barton, as someone who had two stripper girlfriends, highly not advisable. Hey, Paul Thomas understands his vices. He understands what his vices are. He's in love with a stripper. Just a fan says Aaron Rodgers looks smart now. The day that Aaron Rodgers looks smart is the day where you need to just to be sure, check your closet and see how many tinfoil hats that you have picked up over the years. Paul Thomas says, great show. Sorry I had to go for a bit. That's fine. At least you found us, man, because I don't know what was going on. Things just were not working properly at the beginning. Hey, Paul, it's fine, man. It's fine. You this is a safe space where you feel comfortable to go on your tangents. So I'm not worried. David Barton says, I'm guilty. I sent Paul on tangents. I can understand that. All right, guys. I appreciate you being patient. In the beginning, having to jump around to different streams. Like I said, I don't know what goes on, man. Sometimes, like I said, you do something the same every single day, and then one day it just stops working. So you're like, what's going on here? But hopefully it won't. We won't have that problem tomorrow. Hopefully the system will be back into doing what it's supposed to do each and every time. But appreciate you guys. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Share the stream. Let everybody know. I'm going to go work on some thumbnails. We've got it down to, it's almost done. It's almost ready. So hopefully we can start off next week with the All Grit Pod. And tune in tomorrow morning if you are not busy. I will be on the Rocked On Podcast Network on the Rise and Grind morning show with Will Rock Jr. We had a great time this morning, so hopefully we'll have another great time tomorrow morning. But as always, guys, until next time, peace.